Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to Podcastage. This is my review of the brand new Shure SM7dB, which is a Shure SM7 with a built-in preamp. Full disclosure, this is a loaner sent to me by Shure. This costs about $500. Like always, I'll throw some links in the description down below. All of my recording settings will be in the description, as well as the doobly-doo. And now let us talk about what comes in the box. What a surprise, you are going to get the microphone. You get a big fat foam windscreen, a 5/8 to 3/8 inch microphone stand adapter, a Velcro cable tie, and a little bit of documentation. Then as far as the build quality, surprise, surprise, it feels fantastic. It has an all-metal body. Under the foam, you get a metal mesh grill with no give to it. You have a metal yoke mount. You have metal knobs attaching that to the mic. On the mount, you have 5/8 inch threading as well as the XLR port. And on the back of the microphone, now you have 4 switches as opposed to the 2 that are on the SM7B. You still have the high pass filter switch as well as the presence boost switch, but now you have a bypass mode, which makes this the same as the SM7B, or preamp mode, which does require 48 volts of phantom power, but that takes us to the final switch here, plus 18 or plus 28 decibels. You can increase the output of the SM7 by 18 or 28 decibels. Finally, if you care or not, this microphone is made in Mexico, but I think they also make it in China. I'm not going to read you all of the specs, but up on the screen, I will have them listed so you can pause and take a closer look, or if you want to dive in the description, they're listed there as well. Now I'm spinning around the SM7dB to 90 degrees to show you the off-axis rejection and coloration. Continuing around to the rear of the microphone, this is the rear. Continuing around to the second 90-degree angle, here we are. And then rotating and ending at the front of the microphone. Now let's see how well the SM7B does at rejecting plosives. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. And now with the big fat foam windscreen. Please bring pizza pronto. Please bring pizza pronto. Now I am right on top of the microphone to exaggerate the proximity effect, and here's how it's sounding. About 3 inches away from the microphone with it pointed at the corner of my mouth, and here's how it's sounding. Now I'm about 6 inches away from the SM7dB, about 1 foot away from the mic, about 2 feet away from the microphone, and about 4 feet away from the Shure SM7dB. Now I am typing on a keyboard with Gateron blue switches to see how much of my voice versus how much of the keyboard it picks up. And for the gaming folk, here I am clicky-clacking on the sad W and spacebar. Now here's how the SM7dB sounds about 3 inches away from my mouth in a relatively well-treated room. And now here's how the microphone sounds about 3 inches away from my mouth in a completely untreated room. Now I want to see how effective the microphone is at rejecting shocks, so I'll start by tapping on my desk to see how much of that noise it rejects. And then I will tap on the boom arm. I'm also incredibly annoying, so I am going to tap on the microphone to see if there are any kind of resonant frequencies. Now I'm going to demonstrate all of the EQ switches on this thing. So currently I am 3 inches off. I do not have any of the switches engaged, and here's how it sounds. Now I've engaged the high pass filter, and you should hear a lot of the bass and low mid frequencies just get rolled off. It sounds a little bit weaker. It's not as full. It's not as warm. There you go. That's with the high pass filter. Here's a quick palette cleanser with the EQ switches in neutral. Now I've switched on the presence boost on this thing, and you should hear quite a bit more in the mids and upper mids. It sounds a little bit more forward, a little bit more pushed, and a little bit more punchy. That is the presence boost. Back in the neutral mode, which is my personal favorite, this is your palette cleanser. And finally, we are on my least favorite setting. The high pass filter and the presence boost are engaged. I just don't think this is flattering, but I am sure there is a scenario where this setup makes perfect sense. There you go, those are the EQ switches. Now I want to include a comparison of the SM7dB against the SM7B. Currently the DB is in passive mode. Both of these mics are connected to the 18i 22nd gen. Gain is set at 100%. I will be switching back and forth between them so you can hear if there is any kind of tonal difference. That should be enough of a sample for you. And now let us compare the noise floor in this configuration. Now the SM7dB is set to plus 18 dB on the preamp mode. I was able to decrease my gain to about 245 on the 18i20. Again, I will be switching back and forth between the SM7dB and the SM7B so you can hear if there is any kind of tonal difference between the two microphones when the preamp circuit is engaged. Does it sound different, or does it sound better, or does it sound the same? That's the other option. Now let's hear the noise floor in this configuration. Now the dB is set to plus 28 decibels on the preamp mode. Obviously 48 volts is on, and I decreased my gain to about 12 o'clock. Again, I will just speak for a little bit and switch between them so you can hear if there was any kind of tonal difference in this preamp configuration, as cars are way too loud outside. How is that even a thing? Shut up. Now I'm going to be quiet as well, so you can hear the noise floor of these two microphones in this configuration. Now, like I always do, I'm going to do a quick spoken word comparison between the microphone that we're reviewing and a couple of other microphones that are available so you can hear how this stacks up against the competition and so that you're not just listening to this microphone in a vacuum. Here is your first sample of the SM7dB with the preamp mode in plus 28 decibels. The gain on the 18i20 is at 12 o'clock, 3 inches away, EQ and neutral, and here's how it sounds. Starting on the Shure SM58, one of the most popular microphones of all time, 3 inches off, gain is set at about 430. This microphone costs about $100, and here is how it compares to the Shure SM7dB. Let's go back and do too many more comparisons. Back on the SM7dB for a palette cleanser, here is how it's sounding. Let's hear another microphone. Now we are on the SE Electronics SEV7, one of my favorite handheld dynamics. 3 inches off, gain still set at 430. Check the lower third to see how much I boost each of these in post. This also goes for about $100, and here is how this compares to the SM7dB. Let's go back and do some more. I'm not going to ramble because we have a bunch more to go, so here is the DB palette cleanser. Let's hear some more. Now I am on the Rode Podmic XLR. I am 3 inches off. My gain is still set at 430. This microphone goes for about $100. This is the first broadcast style dynamic microphone that we're comparing the DB against. And there you go. That is enough talking. Let's go back and do some more tests. All right, we're back on the SM7dB again. That is enough to clear out your ear canals, and let's hear some more microphones. Now I am on the SE Electronics Dynacaster DCM6. The dynamite circuit is engaged. I am 3 inches off. My gain is set at about 1030. This is incredibly hot for a dynamic. This costs about $100. That's talking about the output level, not the physical attractiveness of it. I am not a microphiliac. Is that a thing? Don't look that up. I don't want to know if that's a thing. $150. And here is how it sounds compared to the SM7dB. Absolutely nothing is changing between these palette cleansers, but here is another one so you can hear it again. Let's hear another microphone too. Now I am on the Shure MV7X. I am 3 inches off. My gain is still set at 430. Check the lower third. This microphone goes for about $180, And here's how this sounds compared to the SM7dB. Let's go back and do some more. Here you go. Here is another palate cleanser because your ears are still a bit waxy, gross. Let's hear some more microphones, please. Now we are on the Rode Procaster again, 3 inches off, again, gain set at 430. This microphone goes for about $230, and here's how this compares against the Shure SM7dB. We have a bunch more to go, so I'm going to stop talking. Let's hear the dB again. All right, I think we are now at the halfway point, so this is your midpoint palate cleanser on the SM7dB. Let's hear another microphone. Now I am on the SE Electronics Dynacaster, 3 inches off, dynamite circuit engaged. I do have the bass boost on, and I have the first high shelf engaged. The 18I20 gain is set at about 11 o'clock, so it's a bit quieter than the DCM6. This goes for about $350, and here is how this sounds compared to the SM7dB. Let's do some more. Back on the SM7dB, make sure to check the lower third to see all of the settings, all of the boostings in post, all of that info. Let's go to another mic. Now I am on the Audio Technica BP40, 3 inches off. I did decrease my gain to about 4 o'clock. This microphone goes for about $350, and here's how this compares against the Shure SM7dB. Almost forgot what we were doing. Let's do some more. Back on the SM7dB, clear out your ear holes. Let's hear some more. Now I am on the Logi G Gaming Tech Blue Sona, 3 inches off, EQ and neutral, no bass cut, no presence boost. My gain is set at 11 o'clock. This mic is incredibly ugly in this configuration. It costs about $350, and here is how this sounds compared to the SM7dB. Here we are on the SM7dB again. Can you tell I run out of things to say when doing these? So let's go to some more because we have a few more to go. Now I am on the Beyerdynamic M201TG, 3 inches off. My gain is still set at 430. This goes for about $400. That's right, it has gone up in price. That makes me sad. But here is how this sounds compared to the SM7dB. Let's do a couple more. I believe we have 2 more mics to go, so this is your penultimate palate cleanser. What a great plosive test, but there you go, 7 dB, second to last mic. Now I am on the Electro Voice RE20. I am 3 inches off, no EQ switch engaged. Gain is set at 430 still, 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. Check the lower third. This microphone costs about $450, so $50 less than the SM7dB, $50 more than the SM7B, and here is how this compares to one of its main competitors. Let's do one final comparison, I think. And we have one final microphone to go. You all know what it's going to be, so let's go to it after you get a good feeling of the SM7dB. What? Gosh, I love how this thing sounds when I close mic it. Finally, I am on the Neumann U87 Ai. Cardioid polar pattern. No pad, no filters. This is a fair comparison, trust me. Gain is set at 11 o'clock. This costs $3,700 against $500 for the DB. This is really meant to be a control. It's not a fair comparison. So if you watch any of the comparisons that are uploaded that are available, this is meant to be a point that you can reference in each of those comparisons. That is it for the comparisons. I have no more to give you. Hopefully that was helpful. Now let's jump to the music test. Run away from all the plastic so you're safe from your habits. You should fear getting everything you want. Come for the mic review, come for the mic tests, come for the terrible songs, stay for the not financial advice. Don't go into debt for microphones. Let's go to the conclusion before I get myself into trouble. I have no idea how to start this conclusion because this is going to come across as a cop-out. This sounds like an SM7B just with a slightly hotter output signal because that's exactly what it is. And first up as far as pros has to be the inbuilt preamp. Because of that, you never really have to worry about whether or not your preamp is going to have sufficient gain. Then we get to why I love the SM7 line. The top end of this is a bit darker, it is incredibly smooth, and I find that makes sound sources really easy to listen to. The SM7 also does a great job at shock rejection and handling noise rejection. I find the proximity effect on the SM7 to sound absolutely incredible, even though I know that makes sound speeds die a little inside every single time I say it. With those switches on the back of the microphone, you're getting a bit of versatility, and a new pro for this is the switches are a lot easier to use than the original SM7B because you don't need a screwdriver or a pen or anything. You just have a very accessible switch. Very nice quality of life upgrade there if you use those switches a lot. And then as far as cons, when you're using the internal preamp with a decent interface or decent outboard preamp with an EIN of around minus 128 dB UA, you'll likely only see a couple dB improvement in your noise floor in the recordings. The reason for that is the SM7 is quiet because of the placement of the capsule within the body. That has not changed, so the signal being output from the capsule is still incredibly quiet. You still need to amplify that the same amount. You are just replacing the preamp in your interface or your outboard pre with the internal preamp in the SM7dB, and I'm guessing that's sitting around minus 128 to minus 130 dB UA. So just keep your expectations in check. If you're thinking this is going to give you the SM7 sound with a noiseless recording, I don't think it is. The second con is the placement of the cable. I know a lot of people hate it because on certain boom arms, it makes it a bit difficult to position the microphone. And the last con is the external cable on the mic. I know a lot of people hate that because it can get caught on stuff. And now, what are my overall thoughts and opinions of the SM7dB? As far as the sound, it sounds like an SM7B. I know, you are surprised, you are shocked, you are befuddled. In the bass, low mids, and mids, I think you're getting a relatively neutral sound, of course assuming you don't have the presence boost engaged. If you do want more of a forward upper mid section, switch on that presence boost. But once you switch that back off in the upper frequencies, I find that you get a darker and much smoother sound compared to a lot of other dynamics out there. On the electric guitar with the presence boost engaged, I think this thing is absolutely awesome, kind of like a smoother and more refined SM57. On the acoustic guitar, I know people love this, but it's not my favorite sound because I like my acoustic to have a bit more extension into the treble and air and have a bit more liveliness and articulation. This isn't offering that. For singing vocals, I think this is absolutely fantastic, especially if you're looking for that darker and smoother sound, or if you're looking for a microphone for really aggressive vocals like screaming. This thing is really popular for that. And finally, for spoken word, I love this thing. It's darker, it's smoother, it is non-sibilant, it is just incredibly easy to listen to, which is why I think it's so popular for podcasts. Now I want to answer the question of, does the internal preamp in the SM7dB really improve the performance over the SM7B? The answer is kind of, and it depends. When I had the preamp mode set to plus 18 dB, I actually found that the noise floor performance was worse compared to the SM7B. But when I increased that to plus 28 dB and ran the microphone into a decent mid-level interface, the 18i20, It did technically improve the noise floor by a few dB, but in my opinion, that is negligible. That is going to come down to your own standards and your own threshold of acceptability, though. Those last few dB improvement of the noise floor may be the make or break for you. But if you are running it in plus 28 dB, and running into noisier preamps like the brand new Shure MVX2U or a Steinberg UR series interface with an EIN of minus 123 dB UA or minus 120 dB UA, then yes, this is going to give you a significant improvement in terms of noise performance over the SM7B. But if you don't care about noise at all and your only concern is the microphone being quiet and your interface or pre not having enough gain to drive the microphone, then yes, the internal preamp in the SM7dB resolves that. And to wrap up, what I recommend the Shure SM7dB, it is another resounding, kind of. If you already have an SM7B, I do not think you need to upgrade because $500 is a lot of money. You already sunk $400 into the SM7B, and an inline preamp is $50, $100, $150. That is a heck of a lot cheaper than forking out another $500 for the 7dB. So if you already have the SM7B, no, I do not recommend this. How about if you already have an inline mic pre lying around your studio like a Soyuz launcher, a cloud lifter, a FET head, or any of the others that are available? I would say save $100 and go for the SM7B because you already own the active component that is in the SM7dB that differentiates it from the 7B. Or if you're somebody who has made recordings with or heard recordings of the SM7B and thought, yeah, that's a bit too noisy, there's too much preamp hiss, that's not acceptable, then I would not recommend the SM7dB because it's only going to give you a marginal improvement in the preamp noise, assuming that you're using a mid-tier device with an EIN of around minus 128 dB. That was a lot of negative, but now who would I recommend the SM7dB for? First and foremost, you need to want the sound of the SM7B because that is what you're getting. Darker, smoother, easy to listen to. If that's the sound you're looking for, then you're looking in the right place. Then there are a few technical limitations on the preamp side that I think make the SM7dB the right choice. If your preamp doesn't have a lot of gain and you're not going to be able to drive the SM7B to get your signal to around minus 18 to minus 12, then I would say go for the 7dB over the 7B. Or if you're running your microphone into a preamp that's a bit noisier, like an outboard tube preamp, some kind of vintage preamp, or a cheaper preamp in a tiny portable audio interface, then the 7dB is going to give you a big improvement in noise over something like the SM7B. So if you fall into that category wanting this sound, using a noisier preamp, or not having sufficient gain on your pre, then I think the SM7dB makes a lot of sense. Alright, that's all that I've got for you today. If you found this video fun, interesting, or helpful, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, hit it a big old thumbs down. I will talk to you in a week or so. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. Whoa, whoa, boop.